We'll call the organizational meeting of the Caroline County Board of Supervisors to order. It's January 9th, our first meeting, and our first order of business is election of officers for 2018. And so if we have any nominations for chairman.
Mr. Cully, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mrs. Nancy Long as chairwoman.
Second.
Board of Supervisors.
Any other nominations? Want to close the nominations?
I move to close.
All right, we have a motion and a second for Mrs. Long to be chairperson, chairwoman, or however we're going to use your terminology as we move forward for 2018. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Would you like me to keep going, or would you like to move? I can. Next, we would need a nomination for someone to serve as vice chair for the 2018.
I make a motion Mr. Clay Forehand be vice chair.
Second.
Any other nominations? Nominations are closed. If I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion we close nominations for vice chair.
All right, do twice at the same time. All in favor of Mr. Forehand to be vice chairman for 2018, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. So if y'all would like to take over, it would certainly suit me.
Get to change seats.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate the support, and I'll do my best and lean on the senior representatives for advice and procedural correctiveness when needed. So right now we're going to move on to the adoptions of the rules of order that were in your agenda. Any changes or recommendations there?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the rules as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
How about opposed?
Any opposed? Hearing none, so moved. Then we have our schedule for our regular board meetings for 2018. I believe the major change is in November. Was that the only change I saw?
July as well. The last 2 years, we've removed the second meeting in July due to various vacations and things, and so it seemed to have worked out fairly well. Prior years, we were moving the meeting all around trying to accommodate those schedules.
So we're going to eliminate the July meeting again.
The second meeting. We would recommend it. 2 years now, we've managed to make that work.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt the schedule for the 2018 Board of Supervisors meetings as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Now we come to the fun part of appointments for different meetings and organizations. All right. So Rappahannock Area on Aging, right now we have Mr. Underwood. Do you want to continue in that, Mr. Underwood?
I make a motion, we appoint Mr. Reggie Underwood to the Rappahannock Area on Aging.
Second?
want-
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do you want to do them, I was going to say, we can do them all at once. I've forgotten that we, yeah, let's do that. I'm sorry.
Next, we have the Social Services Board. Mr. Seeley, you are on there right now. You want
I would
remain?
like to remain.
Is anyone else interested? Okay. George Washington Regional Commission. Currently, that's Mr. Black and myself.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to continue serving on that commission.
Would you like AMPO also?
No, you can keep that one.
All right, I'll certainly continue on there also with you, Mr. Black. Is anyone else interested? Okay. Fredericksburg Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Council. Mr. Seeley, you currently are there.
I would like to remain.
Any other interested parties? Rappahannock Regional Disability Services Board. Mr. Cully, you are a nominee for that. You don't get a choice unless someone else would like. Would someone like to serve on that board? All right, Mr. Cully, it looks like you're the appointee. Rappahannock River Basin Commission. Mr. Black, you currently serve on that. Do you want to continue on that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and if there are meetings you can't make, I'll be glad to go as your alternate on that.
Okay, that would help. Thank you, because a lot of those during the school day, so yes, thank you.
Fredericksburg Regional Alliance, Mr. Forehand.
I'll continue unless someone else has an interest.
The Recreational Advisory Committee, Mr. Forehand.
I would like to continue as well unless someone else has an interest.
Therefore, our appointments are Mr. Underwood for Rappahannock Area on Aging, Mr. Seeley for Social Services Board, myself and Mr. Black for George Washington Regional Commission, Mr. Seeley for the Fredericksburg Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Council. Mr. Cully will represent the county at the Rappahannock Regional Disability Services Board. Mr. Black will serve on the Rappahannock River Basin Commission. Mr. Forehand will serve on the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance and the Recreation Advisory Committee. Do I hear a motion to such?
I have one correction. It's now the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance Government and Military Affairs Council. We should need to fix the name. It has had a morphosis of such. But I'll make a motion with the change.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Madam Chairman, one other thing. Last year I was appointed as an alternate to the regional jail, and it was at this meeting. And I'd also like to be appointed. I don't remember where that was in the agenda, but we did make that appointment after some discussion. I'd like to continue that role as the alternate from the board.
They stand unless we change them.
Okay.
So they're good.
Thank you.
We're now going to close the organizational section of this meeting. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we will resume with our call to order for our regular meeting. Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I think you
Do
can
you
just
have to?
adjourn. You can just adjourn for 5 minutes.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll be right back.
That way Mark can take the picture and they can.
I'll now call the regular meeting of the Caroline County Board of Supervisors to order. We'll begin with invocation by outgoing chairman.
You'd all rise, please, and bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight, and we ask you that you bless us and guide us and make the best decisions for Caroline County. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you all for coming this evening. Do we have any opening comments from members of the board? Thomas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have one, and it's really just to announce that the county will be having a Martin Luther King program Monday the 15th, which is Martin Luther King's actual birthday, at 10 a.m. here in the community center. So just wanted to make sure we were all aware of that. I plan to attend, and I hope the rest of the board does as well. That was it. Thank you. Monday at 10. Monday at 10. Here. Right here in this very auditorium.
Mr. Black, do you have any?
I do. First of all, I'd like to welcome my dad. He's visiting from the state of Maine. I think he brought the cold weather with him. So, I mean, so that's, I think we've been going through a little cold weather, so hopefully everyone's been able to deal with that okay. You guys had quite a dilemma there in Port Royal, so to deal with. So wish you the best on that. Hopefully you guys made it through okay, and appreciate everything, Mr. Cully, that you did on that matter. Second of all, I had the opportunity to participate in the Bowling Green Christmas Parade this year with the Polar Bear Plunge. I'll tell you something, Mr. Seal, that was a blast. That was a lot of fun. I think we planned on, we were able to get a lot of information out on the plunge pretty quickly at that parade. And Mr. Thomas, I think you said you wanted to go into the water, correct?
Never.
So the Polar Bear Plunge, Major Mosier, I think you're going in again this year, aren't you? The Polar Bear Plunge will be held on Saturday, February 3rd at the Lake Landor Beach. It is if you haven't had the opportunity to see this event in Caroline, I would urge members of the board to go to it. There's now, last year was 7 organizations. We're up to 9 organizations that are in it. Mr. Cully is going to be the DJ of the event, so the music by Mr. and I think he said he was going to go in after too, right? It's a really a kind of a neat event, and last year, like I said, it brought in $17,000 for various organizations. So if you have a chance to come in and see it, please take the opportunity. It brings the community together. We have a costume contest and music, and the different churches and organizations are selling chili or hot chocolate or something to keep them warm as the events take place. I did one more thing to want to mention. I felt like we need to. I know some people have been pretty upset about the announcement of the Walmart not coming to Caroline. I do want to kind of clarify a couple of things, and I think the board can back us up. We did not know officially that the Walmart was not coming until just a few days before our last meeting. It wasn't something that we knew in advance well ahead of time and kept from the public. It was something that we had just found out ourselves about three weeks ago, right before that last meeting. And we are obviously heavily disappointed in that decision as well. I mean, the tax revenue it was to bring for us, we were hoping that was going to be the place. My own personal belief on that, however, is the widening of Ladysmith Road needs to continue, the 4-laning of that road. That's an investment for our county. We have a sweet deal that Mr. Nelson helped us work for us from the state, where we're only paying $7 million of the $30 million on that project. I think it would be foolish to let that project go. Six, I'm sorry, 6 million of the 30 million that we're on the hook for. So it's a really good deal, and it would be foolish for us to pass up on that opportunity. That's all, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
Just one comment, Madam Chairman. I would just like to thank all the public safety folks during the cold weather. I saw and heard fire trucks and rescue squads and sheriff's deputies. I live, a good golfer can probably hit a golf ball to my house from the sheriff's office or from Bowling Green Fire and Rescue. And I don't know if people realize the number of calls that we had during that cold weather and how it affects all those folks that actually have to work out. And I'd just like to thank them for that time. And for those, you know, today was actually a 65-degree change in temperature over one of our coldest days. So when you think about it, it's pretty incredible. But thanks to all of you that bring everybody through those kinds of situations. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Underwood?
No comments, Madam Chair.
Mr. Forehand?
Thank you. Today is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So I do want to express gratitude for what you do for all of us. Thank you. Also wanted to advise folks that Prince George Electric Co-op is rolling out a program. I know we're served by Rappahannock Electric. They're also a co-op. They are initiating a program, a pilot program, to provide internet services to rural Prince George County and other places. So it does give me some hope that our co-ops can perform that service moving forward, and we will start the information gathering and the pressure on Rappahannock to do something comparable. Also, to piggyback on what Mr. Black said, there was a lot of information regarding the Walmart withdrawal from the county, and some folks want to attribute that to some lack of effort on the county's part, and I can assure the folks that there was a lot of effort to keep them here. There was the plan was approved, the roadways plans were approved, funded. Really, we couldn't do any more at this point. We can't make them spend the money, nor can we make any business spend money inside of Caroline County. And some of the comments were just flat out wrong. So I do want to set the record straight as best as my ability, and advise that we did our part, and we will actively seek out alternatives to that. And we're optimistic. It is a great parcel and a very heavily trafficked exit, and we're optimistic. At least I'm optimistic that we're going to be successful in the near future. So, thank you.
As you probably saw in the newspaper, my biggest thing has been down in the part of Caroline where I live, the corridor by 17 and 301. There's the old section of Port Royal serviced by Dominion Power, and their conduit that goes across the river went bad. We only delayed in setting up the overnight shelter because they thought they could get the problem fixed. And it wasn't until they realized the whole line was going to have to be replaced that they told us it was going to be a long period of time. I want to thank the Port Royal Volunteer Fire and Rescue crew. They were wonderful. They were there. They were trying to take care of citizens as well as run calls. I want to thank the town council members that showed up to help relieve them so they could run calls at times. Those who provided some food. Thanks to the Red Cross when we got the okay to go ahead and open up the shelter here at the community center. It went fast. They were right on it. They brought food in with them. First hot meal some people had had for a couple of days. So it was a nice, it was hard. It was cold. I have never been so cold. But people pulled together. We tried to catch the fight between the fire rescue, neighbors calling neighbors. We tried to hit everyone to make sure they were okay. I did get a call today from a lady who said she was not contacted. My advice to any citizen is at a time like that, if somebody does not reach out to you, reach out to us. Fire and rescue is there. Sheriff's department's there. We will do the best we can for you. But I really also want to thank the utility department. Mr. Schiebel's crew has been down in Port Royal fixing line breaks and trying to keep the well house from freezing and helping people locate leaks in their yards and that type of thing. So much thanks to all, and 35 degrees feels like a heat wave right now. So I am enjoying that, so thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to amendments to the agenda. Gentlemen, do I hear any amendments to tonight's agenda?
Madam Chairman, I'd just like to add one amendment. If we could, wherever you want to put it, I just want to talk about letters again, going out to the residents about the public hearing for Aqua in April.
Let's put that under unfinished business 5A.
Thank you.
In that we needed to open an emergency shelter, I did declare a local emergency at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, and we have a resolution that we need you to ratify for that decision. I think you've heard most of all of it. We ultimately housed 5 people overnight here, and we did have, there was a full Red Cross shelter. It was supported by the Department of Social Services, which sometimes gets left out. I think it was at least 3 employees from Social Services that worked. Deputy Chief Garnett was here from Fire and Rescue, along with several other Fire and Rescue Department employees that were here to manage, along with rotating deputies, all the things that you would need, whether you had 5 people or 100. But anyway, to make it official, we would need to place this on consent F, if you don't mind, and if anybody had any other questions about that. But resolution declaration of local emergency.
And
I have,
4F will be the resolution. Any other changes?
I have one item, not sure where you want to put it, probably 5B. It's a reallocation of money towards Little League from the funds appropriated to the senior gala.
That would be new business. We don't have a new business section. We have one? Stay where? All right, we'll make that 5B. Any other changes? All right. Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept tonight's agenda with amendments?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. So we're going to move on to presentations of reports. At this time, it is my pleasure to call forward, if I could, Jim and Boo Smythe from Mount Olympic Farm. Are you here, Smythe? There they are. Thank you all so much for being here with us tonight, and it's my pleasure to read the following. Whereas Jim and Boo Smythe have hosted the Caroline County Wounded Warrior Fishing Tournament at their beautiful Mount Olympus Farm since its inception in 2012, and whereas this act of kindness has provided a wonderful venue and opportunity for men and women who have served their country during a time of war to spend a day filled with recreation, good food, and companionship with those who have shared similar experiences. And whereas the fishing tournament at Mount Olympus Farm is a tremendous way to support the vision of the Wounded Warrior Project to foster the most successful, well-adjusted generation of wounded service members in our nation's history. And whereas Caroline County is very fortunate to have a group of dedicated volunteers who have donated their resources, time, and efforts to this worthy cause. And whereas the county would like to call attention to the unsung and critical role played by Mr. and Mrs. Smythe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby thanks and commends Jim and Boo Smythe for their generous support of the Caroline County Wounded Warrior Fishing Tournament and the community-mindedness that they have displayed through their actions. Adopted this 9th day of January 2018. Thank you so much. And if we could get you to come up here for a picture, please. Could you come up here for a photograph with the board? Mr. Upshaw, report on Unity Day, Caroline County.
Good evening, everybody. I want to thank Floyd Thomas and Alan Parton for getting us on the agenda tonight, and also thank Mr. Cully. We're here to ask the board to declare Friday, April 27, Caroline Unity Day. My name is Ed Simmons. I'm a folk musician and an almost retired writer for the Caroline Progress, and a happy resident of Bowling Green in Caroline County. With me is Reverend David Upshaw, who may have to leave momentarily, so he just elected not to come up front. Almost retired as well, much beloved Caroline pastor, missionary, teacher, who was president of his 1969 class at Caroline High School. With me, too, is Richard Leeper, sociology professor, not retired, at Germana Community College. He lives in Carmel Church with his wife, Deb, and have founded Hope 3 Ministries, which is a quote from their mission statement, called to share joyfully the knowledge and love of Jesus Christ through a variety of educational and religious programs, activities, and continual nurturing. They do wonderful work there. My point tonight is that to help counteract the divisiveness now threatening our nation, Caroline Unity Day will be a time to honor and celebrate the multifaceted racial and ethnic culture of our county. Our wonderful county can be an example of harmonious coexistence to the rest of our nation. Superintendent Dr. George Parker of Caroline County Public Schools has welcomed the establishment of Unity Day and in fact suggested that we come to you as a great potential benefit to the schools, and Becky Elam, coordinator of special programs, is now exploring creating school activities to promote unity. We are also organizing a music festival called Unity Fest for the following day, Saturday, April 28th. This will be held in this auditorium, 1 to 5 p.m. It will be a multi-ethnic and family-friendly show celebrating peace, love, community service, and the connectedness between us all. I understand that Sheriff Lippa will be here to make remarks at that time also. Also, at Reverend Upshaw's suggestion, we're seeking to inspire and create Unity Sunday, April 29, as a time for Caroline pastors to exchange pulpits. In fact, it would be great if the board declared the entire week Caroline Unity Week, and by declaration continue this in future years during the 4th week of April. The board may also elect to oversee its organization and sponsorship. The Caroline County Board of Supervisors can make a great difference and make Caroline a great, even finer example to our nation. Thank you for your consideration. I'm now going to ask Mr. Leeper to talk a moment about our finances.
Good evening. As Ed suggested, what we're looking at through Unity Fest is the idea of bringing in a variety of multicultural activities, performers, and events going to be hallmarked on Saturday, April 28th. Our budget for running the event is running somewhere around $1,250. The event itself, the festival itself, will not have any fee for the people to participate in it because, again, we're wanting to encourage as many people as possible to be able to participate in it and not make it restrictive for any price whatsoever. There'll be a variety of activities, children's activities, some inside, some outside, excuse me, and some minor concessions. So we're making an event that's possible for everyone to be here and have a good time for it. Our budget of the $1,250 I mentioned basically covers all of our expenses for advertisement, honorariums, all the various expenses for the event. Our number one expense I have is our facilities rental, which happens to be this very room. And we were also hoping that the board might be able to consider the opportunity to waive the fee, since this would be an event not for profit and is an event that would be one that would benefit the entire county. So we would appreciate your consideration for that, as that would greatly help us in our fundraising for the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And David, if you want to make a remark? Okay, great. All right, well, thank you so much.
We'll put this topic on our agenda for the 23rd for discussion. Thank you. Do you have something else?
That's all, thanks.
All right.
See if you had questions of us.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Nelson, VDOT.
Happy New Year, everyone. Here to give you your first report of the year. I'm actually going to start with the construction projects updates and the corridor study updates. For the Route 301 bridge rehab project over the Rappahannock River, they're still working on that. They hope to be finished sometime this year. They've asked for an extension of time based on the extra work they had to do. For the rural rustic projects this year, we've got upcoming Route 629 and Archie Road. We're going to start the prep work for that this winter, and we'll do the hard surfacing in the summer. At the last board meeting I was at, I believe was in October, we had a pretty good discussion about flashing yellow arrows. So in Caroline County right now, the contract that we have executed, they're upgrading the signals on Route 207 at Welcome Way and at Enterprise Parkway for the flashing yellow arrows. And we're working on trying to get the one at Port Royal added if the structure will facilitate it. The one right there at 17 and 30. It is, but they don't have the flashing yellow arrow. So we're working on that. And for these, we're going to do, for the major intersections on 207, we'll put message boards out beforehand to let people know that there will be a change to the signal. And once they go operational, we'll put up a message saying yield on flashing yellow, since some people don't know how to drive on the flashing yellow arrows. Oh, I know it's coming. For the corridor studies, the Route 301-207 corridor study, we had a stakeholder meeting on December 7th. We had a public information meeting in Port Royal on the 17th, and we're going to be meeting with the individual stakeholders in Caroline County next week. We've got a meeting scheduled with Caroline County on Tuesday morning. After that, we're going to meet with the town of Bowling Green, and on Wednesday morning, we're meeting with the town of Port Royal. So we'll be meeting next week with them to kind of get input on some of the recommendations that have been made and seek input directly from you all on what's going on. If you all don't have any questions on those items, I can go over each individual board member's updates. I'll start with Mr. Black. The Route 639 safety study is now complete. They should have gotten all the trees out the way. All the signs have been upgraded. Has a request for us to review Miller's Lane and Clifton Road for needed repairs. Those issues should have been addressed in November. Mr. Seeley, we had talked yesterday about a deer crossing sign inquiry from a citizen. We reached out to that citizen yesterday and let them know that the sign was not warranted. So that one's been handled. Mr. Underwood, at the last meeting, you asked me to review the passing zone at Route 30 just east of 301. We're still looking at that with traffic engineering. There was also a request to us to look at the bridge approach on Route 30 right there at the Hanover line with the dip. We're working with our maintenance staff and bridge to see if there's something we can do. I just don't know what we can do because it's the approach and then the road, and I just don't know how we're going to fix it without bringing one way up to fix the dip. So to be continued on that. Mr. Forehand, you had asked me to review Direct Road for the feasibility of a center line. They're still looking at that also.
There was the discussion regarding the larger shoulders on Route 1 and Ladysmith.
Yeah, so we're still working on that too,
Okay.
to figure out what kind of option we can have.
It didn't fall off.
Yep. Mrs. Long, the speed limit has been changed for the location of the 45 mile per hour zone in Port Royal that you had requested. Those signs have been moved. Yes, yes. So those signs moved. We're going to do some other upgrades to signs out there, but we did move the sign like you requested.
And we're still working on 35, right?
Sure, yes. Yep. Mr. Thomas, you had requested the safety study. We're working on that. We have all but one property owner that has agreed for us to remove the tree. So once we get a yes or no from that individual property owner, we'll authorize the contractor to cut down the trees. Those were my updates. Do you all have any for me?
Good to see you again, Mr. Nelson.
Let me get my pen ready.
You snuck in that low blow on me before I could talk, so I appreciate that. But for those of us who are older than you and have been driving longer than you have, when you see a yellow light, your tendency is to go through that yellow light as quickly as possible. I'm sure Mr. Mosier would tell you that yellow means clear the intersection. Blinking yellow is nothing personal, but I gotta say, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. When I saw the blinking yellow, and I think I told you personally,
You did.
in Fredericksburg, I got caught in the middle of traffic because I was trying to go through. Nothing personal, stupid idea.
We're going to put some message boards out to alert people, though, in
Yeah.
these bigger intersections.
Stupid idea with message boards, okay? Really it is. It's not a good safety thing because people will tend to go through there. You're going to create more accidents than you stop. Everybody knows green, if you're making a left, you have to yield. Green arrow, you have the right of way. You've thrown in something that's totally new in Virginia. We got to educate everybody. I don't want to be the one to say, I told you so. That's why I'm trying to say, how do I stop that? And can I please not have those in the Mattapan district because I think our citizens are going to be frustrated.
Um,
So these two you want to do on 207?
Yeah, those two are happening.
You can probably keep those. You can put those somewhere else.
I think you're going to move a whole lot more traffic with the flashing yellow arrows, and if we do the outreach like we're supposed to up front, you're not going to have any issues. You're going to have, you'll have a reduction in issues.
I will talk to you privately when we're done here and tell you about the light that's at Route 1 and 207 and how that light got there. And also I'll tell you about the light at 17 and Route 2 and tell you how that light got there.
Okay.
Okay? Those were flashing lights that caused a lot of accidents.
Yeah, but those weren't even operational fully,
Yeah.
like the one at Thornton Road on 17. This is, okay, we can talk offline.
I'm gonna let that go
Okay,
for now.
I got you.
On the other thing is, the question I asked, if you can let me know privately, when we talk right after you're done, you can let me know who that citizen is on 639,
I got a name for you.
and maybe I can help you get that
Gotcha.
right away there,
Okay,
because that's a safety concern we're trying to fix.
all right.
The other thing, which was not mine, but Mr. Seeley and I agreed, was the directional signage for Bowling Green off the bypass. You
Yes,
and I talked about that.
That signage is going up. We've already got the sketch up. I believe I sent the sketch. Did I send you the sketch of where we're removing the sign? And it's going to be a directional sign that says Bowling Green to the left.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
because the sign is before you go
It's across
over
over the
bypass.
bridge. We've
Right.
got a sketch that I thought I'd sent it to you. Maybe I didn't, but we're moving that sign closer toward where you're going to turn at. So
Okay.
once we order it and get the sign up, I'll let you know.
That's a great idea. See, I'm good
Give
both
and
ways.
take.
And the last one, I know it's been stated it was a good idea for us to continue the Ladysmith Road project, but I'd just like to keep my options open and know what they are. What happens, because the county hasn't paid that $6 million, we're still holding most of that money.
Yes, yes. You're
So
correct.
what happens if the county was to decide, for whatever reason, to not go ahead with that project?
You pay back the amount of money that we have spent on the project to date.
And how much is that?
Right now, I think we've spent about $500,000 on design.
Okay, so we would have to pay that back
Yes.
or go $6 million and make sure we get a client there. Okay.
Yes, and you would not be able to apply for that same project, I believe, for 2 terms.
Which is 4 years now because every
Yes.
two times. Okay. I just really want to make sure I understand what that process is.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson, again, I do thank you for all the work you've done. I know it's not your call, but that is the stupidest idea in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Black?
Yes, Mr. Nelson, good evening.
How you doing?
Doing well.
Oh, you're feeling better now.
Yeah. Hey, I just had a couple things, and I think we've talked about this before. Before Christmas, there was an accident. It's kind of on the border between mine and Mr. Forehand's district. If I'm in the Bridlewood subdivision, and I've had some people in the Bridlewood subdivision complain to me about it. If I'm in the Bridlewood subdivision and taking a left to go towards Ladysmith, the traffic coming from the west, from Lake Landor in that area, if a car is bearing down the road going to the east, you really, the line of sight there, the line of sight from how much room you have to see for a car coming, there isn't much. And I think if you put yourself at the Bridlewood subdivision, because there's a dip there.
Yeah, I think we've looked at this before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just saying, we had another accident there before Christmas, right in that area. People in that subdivision are concerned, when they make that left turn. So if it's something that you and I can talk about, we can look at. I know we cut some trees down for a sight line, but still, even with that, just because the terrain, it doesn't give you a lot of sight when someone's going 55 miles an hour.
The issue you're going to have is that the sight line that you're going to need is going to be on private property.
Okay.
So in order to achieve the sight line, you're probably going to have to cut down the bank and remove the trees in order to see around the curve.
Okay. Well, all I know is, if we can look into that more, you and I can talk about it. All I know is we're having some people, when people in that subdivision, I don't know if Mr. Forehand's got any phone calls on it, but when they're, I work with a couple of people who live in that subdivision, and they're scared of making that left turn because you don't have a huge line of sight there.
Okay.
So, that is something, and we did have an accident before Christmas right in that area. The second thing is, we had talked about on the 639 project about, I think you know where I'm going with this, and that was supposed to be the beautification, what it would cost.
Landscaping.
Landscaping and so forth to make it more appealing. What could be done for design and what would cost be, just to get some ideas. We were supposed to, you had talked about doing that back in like June and July, and we're now in January.
I've got it.
Okay.
So the designers we went to the designers, we've got a conceptual plan for that. So if you want to meet to talk about that
Yes.
now, we
Well,
can
yes,
schedule
I
that.
think Mr. Forehand would like to be in on that,
Okay.
or whoever, but yes, I would like to see what that entails.
I got some yellow lights.
So we could put Mr. Thomas's yellow lights in there, but that's all I have, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Seeley?
The one other question I had, Mr. Nelson, was the stop sign at 608 going into the landfill,
Yeah.
where the reserve center comes out onto that landfill, and the stop sign is sideways, and I don't know who owns that. If we could figure that out,
Okay.
that would be helpful. I don't know if it's you guys or the Army, so.
I've got that in my queue.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Underwood, do you have anything?
Good afternoon, Mr. Nelson. Certainly, I appreciate you guys going down Ruther Glen Road and Signboard Road and filling in the shoulders. I do disagree with findings that you have no liability when there are potholes there that cause damage. So I wasn't happy with that.
I tried to tell you.
Yeah, you did. But I appreciate it, though. Thank you.
Mr. Forehand?
Mr. Nelson, thank you for the updates. Stormwater basin or stormwater collectors, curbs on Ladysmith Road, west of Route 1. If there's a tree growing out of one of them, do we just send you an email and say, hey, you need to go cut down the tree that's coming out of the sewer? Or what's
So you're talking about in the curb?
the curb, the intake for the
Yeah,
water
just
that's
let me
running down
know
the
where
curb?
there's a tree growing out, and we can
Okay.
see if we can get it removed.
It's just an email to you and you.
Yeah,
take care
or
of
you can send it through my VDOT, the work order, just like everybody else does, if you want to. But sending it to me will probably get you something quicker.
I tried to pull it out, but it was too large.
I got you. Yeah, just shoot me something in an email, and I can get my guys to go look at it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Nelson. First of all, thank you to VDOT for getting the permit out quickly so that Dominion Power could run the conduit across the bridge on the top side. Appreciate that. Also, secondly, Mr. Fincham and I believe, have talked to you and your staff before about Julian and Mason Street over in Caroline Village, and how we can get those going into the secondary road system. I think that subdivision was platted way back in '66, so, they're dirt roads, and we've got about 30 houses back in there, and I'd like to go ahead and see about taking the next steps to get that into process.
Rural addition, okay. Well, the secondary 6-year plan is coming up for this spring, so we'll have to look. We can look at that then.
Thank you, that's all I've got. Just want to get that going. Thank you.
I did have some updates on you all. I think last year I was here around this time saying that we had a new maintenance supervisor in the Ladysmith area. Well, that person has been promoted. He's now in the Northern Neck. We have a new superintendent that's running that Ladysmith area right now, and he came to us from Henrico County. So I think we're going to have good success with this. He's a really very strong candidate for the job. Our long-standing superintendent in the Farmers Bowling Green area, Mr. Ferguson, Bo Ferguson, who had 32 years of service, retired last month. So his supervisor has taken his role. Mr. Phil Holmes has taken his job. So we'll be hiring his position. So we look for things to still stay even keel with the way that they've been going in the county, and hopefully the service will continue to be suitable for you all. That's all I've got.
John?
I got you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson.
And I tried to tell Reggie the same thing.
Moving on, the next would be appointments. We have, well, we don't have Mattapanai. Mr. Forehand, moving Planning Commission, do you have someone?
I'm going to nominate Mr. George Weber for the Planning Commission for the Madison District. And don't kill me, Mr. Fincham. Sorry.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Thank you, Jeff.
I made the second.
All in favor of nominating George Weber to the Planning Commission for the Madison District, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Mr. Thomas, do you have someone for the Board of Zoning Appeals you'd like to nominate tonight?
I believe that appointment expires in February, and I will have it before then.
Very good. That brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any items that you'd like to have pulled from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion for the consent agenda to be adopted?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Can do 5A.
5A.
We have some time before public comment time, so I suggest we move on to, we'll do 5A. 5A, which is the discussion on getting letters out to Aqua for a meeting. Mr. Black.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I just wanted to thank the board had mentioned in our fight against Aqua before we had put money into it that we have a town hall meeting. Mr. Forehand and I did that back in the fall, and we had roughly 125 or so, I guess, citizens from various communities that are served by Aqua show up to that town hall meeting. I think that letter campaign that was sent out by the county to inform people of when it would be was very successful. In light of that, I would like to, if possible, get a motion from the board to do that same thing when, since there is going to be a public hearing, the State Corporation Commission is coming to Caroline April 4th to hear residents speak about their concerns. If possible, I'd like a letter to go out. That just happened back in December that was announced. I'd like another letter to go out informing citizens that the State Corporation Commission will be in Caroline and that the citizens can come and speak in regard to that matter. So I think all the staff should have all the addresses in place, so forth. So give them plenty of time to start working on that mailing.
You talking about a postcard?
Yeah, the same thing like we did before, a postcard. I would say probably done like a month before, give people plenty of time, just to tell them that the public hearing, if they want to speak on the matter, would be April 4th at 4 and 7.
Is there a cost that was associated with that, so we can agree upon that? Any idea? No idea.
3,000 plus postcards. So the postage on postage stamp for a postcard, and 40 cents, and then it's $1,000 in postage, and then staff time. We were jammed up the last time because by the time we got settled on when we were doing it, we didn't have a whole lot of time, so it was a fair amount of staff time involved in that from senior staff to get all that done. We would like for this time to be able to delegate that down and plan out the workload and get it out. So it would be helpful if you're thinking about doing it to authorize it so we can get the postcards in, get them printed, and then hand them off to folks to get get them run through the postage meter. The last time we went with a bright postcard because we wanted it to stand out, but then it wouldn't run through the postage meter. So then we had to stick stamps on all those, and so, oh my God, we were riding all over everywhere. Pam went all over everywhere trying to find postage stamps because nobody had enough to do it all, and so it was quite a fiasco to get those done. But this time we're going to use a plain postcard and run it through the postage meter and print, anyway. But we need time to make all that work out.
So I'd like to make a motion to have staff send postcards out to those residents in Caroline County that are served by Aqua about the public hearing on April 4th.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Let's move on to 5B.
That was, at my request, we added this item. Some of y'all recall back when we were doing budgeting, I requested that $1,500 be set aside for Little League. That was cut out of the final budget, and we were looking at finding alternatives, and since we weren't funding the senior gala, I was going to propose to the board that we take $1,500 from that was already set aside and budgeted for that, and apply that to the Little League, because they do service about 320 kids in Caroline County. So that's what I'm asking for the reallocation from the board.
Is that for construction, or, I mean, because I know they're in the middle of a construction project?
They've made grant applications to Little League, corporate Little League. They have some things they have to do by easement, and there's some things they want to do to improve their experience, their program. So it's kind of, they got 4 or 5 things, irons in the fire, and this would help them with any of those.
Okay.
On that, can I ask a question too on that? Same note, didn't, we gave them like $10,000 a couple of years ago for construction?
That was for a,
For a new building?
no, that was for something that was damaged. There was a storm, remember, that had damaged?
Yeah, they were redoing their
Yeah,
clubhouse or whatever it was.
Yeah,
The concession, they redid the concession, it would need to be brought up to code. They also lost their trailer
right.
through the small twister.
Yep.
And that's one of the grant applications they have to corporate Little League, is to provide some dressing area for officials that has air conditioning. Right now, all they have is a snack area,
Yeah, that's what it was.
which needed some work several years ago.
So this is not normal operating money, it's for a one-time expense for things like that?
Yes, they have several capital projects in the mix right now.
And we don't have them in our budget for regular operating expense?
No.
Okay. Well,
And I had thought that $1,500 was actually in there until I went looking for it, and it wasn't there, and it had been taken out. It happened. If there's any other discussion, I would like to make a motion that we reallocate that $1,500 from, that's already budgeted for the senior gala, redirect it to Caroline County Little League.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
well, procedurally, I'd like to just give them the $1,500 out of the unencumbered balance. Because then that shows we're making an effort out of the unencumbered balance, but it doesn't make a difference since we're not going to do the senior gala. That funding is going to revert back to the unencumbered
Right.
balance. But in the future, that's what I'd like to see us put them in there if we're going to do that. No more questions?
Any further discussion? Do I have a second?
I seconded.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. All right.
May as well go to break.
We have 20 minutes before public comment time. And I'm going to suggest that we move to our closed meeting at the end of our agenda.
Motion to convene closed meeting, January 9th, 2018. I move that this board convene in closed meeting pursuant to the personnel exemption of sections 2.2-3711.A.1 of the Code of Virginia to conduct an annual performance review of the county administrator.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now in closed sessions. We will reconvene as close to 7:30 as we can get it. Thank you.
I move that Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that to the best of each board member's knowledge, that only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters that are identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Thomas, do you so certify?
I so certify.
I so certify.
Mr. Seeley?
Madam Chair, I so certify.
Mr. Underwood?
I so certify.
Mr. Forehand?
I so certify.
And I so certify. We are now out of closed session, and we will continue with 5 under unfinished
No,
business.
public comment.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. We're now public comment. Anyone wishing to make a comment on anything that is not a public hearing tonight, and I don't believe we have any, you have a 3-minute limit and may come to the podium at this time.
Good evening, supervisors and staff. My name is M.R. Falks, 1601 Belvedere Drive, Fredericksburg, Virginia. And I would just like to express our appreciation of the supervisors and your many hours of hard work. And we know that it's often thankless, and no matter what you do, you get criticized. And, and so, frankly, the Folks family, it's been a very stressful 11 months that things have been in progress. And frankly, a lot of people have been praying that God will give you the wisdom of Solomon, that we would get equal and fair treatment under the law. So we would just like to have those that are in favor of Fox Springs Spec 01-215 to stand. Thank you. And so we appreciate your attention to this matter, and look forward to your wisdom of Solomon as you vote this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else would like to make a public comment at this time?
Hi, I'm Caitlin Carter. I'm the Secretary of the Board of Directors for Carolina Little League. And first and foremost, we would all like to thank you very much for approving the funding. And I, as an umpire, would personally like to thank you because it's been a little rough in the concession stand. And we would like to thank Mr. Black and Mr. Forehand for your letters of recommendation. They have been sent out, and we have our fingers crossed for the grant from Little League International. Registration is now open. The construction on the concession stand has begun, and we have a lot of great fundraising events in the works, and we're hoping that some of y'all can attend some of those. So we are looking forward to a great 2018 spring season. Thank you.
Thank you. Make a comment at this time. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Hearing none, I'm closing public comment section, and we will move on to unfinished business 5. And Sergeant Boykin, would you come on down?
Good evening. The last time we were together, there were some questions that were asked upon me that I wasn't able to answer, so I'm able to do that tonight. At the time, I wasn't currently the first sergeant, and I am effective December the 10th, so I've been able to do some research into the current policy that the Area 44 State Police Office is using, as well as some of the laws that will regulate that. I had previously sent and spoken to Mr. Culley about a specific code section in Virginia, which is 46.2.12.17. The number is not as important as what it actually states. basically what that law requires, and Mr. Underwood, I know this is something you'd be interested in. One of the questions you had is talking about the Sheriff's Department and what is the state police and why do we have different policies. 46.2.12.17 specifically states that in the event a county decides to form a tow board and with that an ordinance, that then the state police is required by law to follow that ordinance. So any policy that I currently have in effect would then be trumped, so to speak, by whatever the ordinance and the tow board would decide. The key part of that to me is this, the question was, do you need a tow board? And obviously that's a decision that the Board of Supervisors will have to make. But this law, this code section specifically, decides and takes it out of my hands. It basically decides that, such as King George, they have a tow board. If a tow board is formed with an ordinance, that I'm required by law to follow whatever that ordinance dictates. So I know that was one of the questions. Mr. Seeley, your question to me, I think during the last meeting is, can the line be moved? Well, first of all, any decisions that I would make to move the line or make changes in the current policy would really be dictated by what this board decides to do. So in other words, do I go ahead and make a bunch of changes to the current Area 44 policy, or do I simply wait for the board to make a decision about whether they want to enact a tow board with an ordinance, and that will dictate what the policies are? Or do I go ahead and make those changes? At this time, I'm not going to make any changes because I'm waiting for you to make that decision, if that makes sense. But specifically, can I, if there's not an ordinance? And the answer is yes, I can. I have the authority to move the line back to where it was established in the 1980s, separating east and west. And it's also the same identical line that Sheriff Lippa put in place in, I believe, 2014, that they still use to this day. So that was one of the key questions that I know Mr. Seeley had. I don't recall any other questions that you had other than the formation of the tow board, how it was, and then, of course, the question Mr. Seeley had about the line.
Madam Chairman, the first sergeant question.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure about the actual line that the sheriff used in 2014, but
Yes,
I know there's some discussion now about aligning along a power line.
Yes, sir. Currently, the line runs, basically, if you're coming down 207, before you get to, say, Panola Road, there's a main set of power lines. Some of you may be very familiar with it. That separates the east and west side of Caroline County for the two zones.
Okay, now, as it was, there's one particular tower that's going to move from one side of the line to the new line, and I don't know how we address that.
So basically, the way it would work is this. Currently, the line runs down 301 here in Carolina, and
Right.
it kind of zigzags as you go further to the south.
Right.
And so basically, if you look at here in Bowling Green, you have Bud's Towing located just north of Bowling Green. That is on the Zone 2 list, the east side.
They're on the east side.
And Caroline Garage is on the Zone 1, which is the interstate list. So
Okay.
it would affect them. It would affect Caroline Garage. It would also affect one more tower at the top of 207, because the line, he would be just on the east side of that line.
Right, I
that
think
would be
Poplar
Poplar
Inn
Inn.
is the one that's actually going to move,
That's correct.
and I think I've talked to them about this particular situation, and I think moving them from west to east basically kills their business. And I don't want to kill anybody's business, because,
I understand.
to be honest, the county needs the revenue, so
I
we
understand.
want to make sure they're happy.
Basically, it's this. One of the things that we are required to do is quick clearance. And there's been studies that have been going on for the last 20 years, and I won't bore you with all those details, but basically the longer that we're standing in the roadway, whether it's the citizens that are involved in a crash.
The more dangerous it is.
Yes, it is. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is look back at the original line that was established in the 80s, and everybody to the east of that can respond to the interstate system very quickly. And obviously that's, with 150,000 cars going up and down 95, that's a main priority of mine for the public safety aspect. And I'm certainly not trying to cut people off a list. They'll still remain on the list, but obviously they wouldn't remain on the interstate list.
But it's part of our responsibility to make sure we don't negatively impact any of the businesses in the county.
I understand.
And what you said before was that if the board decided where the lines would be, that's what you would follow?
So basically, 1272 gives you the authority
To establish the
form a
lines.
tow board, and with that, an ordinance. And then once that ordinance is established, I am required by law to follow it.
But can I, or actually, excuse my English teacher, may I, no, I guess can I is right, because do I have the ability to do it? Can I establish a line without having a tow board?
No.
So I have to have a tow board to establish the lines.
So basically, the ordinance gives the board the authority with the formation of a tow board to establish county policy.
Okay.
And without that, then it falls back to the sheriff's office policy as they have in place, and then it falls back to me to design a policy that
Right.
provides, the quick clearance, and then provides, a level of fairness for all the towers.
And that's really my point.
Yes, sir.
I mean, your main goal is safety, clearing the road, and I understand and appreciate that, and I'm with you on that. I have the added responsibility of making sure that the businesses that are in the county are at least given an opportunity to remain a business, that's in the county. So I can't create the line from the county board perspective without having a tow board.
That's correct.
So if you create the line and I don't like it, or the county doesn't like it, then our only recourse is a tow board to say, this is how we want to make sure our towers are equally separated and treated fairly.
Yes, sir, and the code section specifically gives this board that ability to do that.
Okay. Thank you, First Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions?
Madam Chairman, let me approach this from a little different angle.
Yes, sir.
If we don't create a tow board, and the sheriff's office and the state police and the board of supervisors, can we negotiate boundary lines amongst us that we all agree with without a tow board? Do you have that ability to do that?
I wouldn't want to speak for the sheriff. That's why I looked at Scott Mosier before I answered that. But certainly, I'm certainly, it's open for discussion. I don't think there's anything set in concrete, because ultimately, if there isn't an ordinance, it's up to the first sergeant, me specifically, to design one for the department.
Correct.
So yes, obviously we could obviously listen to the input, but at the end of the day, without an ordinance, it's up for me to basically make the final decision. But yes,
it
to
is
answer
something
your
we
question,
could
yes.
we could negotiate for all the parties involved, sheriff's office, state police, county, and come up with something that works for all of us that we all understand. Because
I think what you're saying, excuse me for interrupting, is that we can negotiate, but it's your call.
That's correct. But obviously, I'm not unreasonable, and I certainly would want to listen to the input that, I don't want to have a negative impact on any business sitting, that is represented here today within this county. And many of these people I've known for almost 20 years, so I certainly don't want to have a negative impact on them. But yes, to answer your question, Mr. Seeley, yes, I think that's something to, if there isn't a tow board and you wanted to have somewhat of a working group, and we look at the current policy to design one, and we can parallel with the sheriff's office, I think that's a very reasonable request, in my opinion.
okay, that's my question answered, and I think that's a very workable situation for all of us.
Now, the sheriff's not here. He's out of town. The sheriff's out of town today?
Yes.
Okay.
he is out of town.
Any
All
other
right, sir.
questions?
I do.
Yes, sir, Mr. Underwood.
First Sergeant, so then would you serve on, if there was a tow board, you would then serve on that tow board?
Yes, sir. Normally, the way the tow boards, and I've done some more research into this, usually they're 5-panel. King George uses a 5-panel tow board. It's comprised of one representative from the state police, one representative from the sheriff's office. We have 2 different zones, so you would basically elect somebody for each one of the zones. That would give you 4, and then the board would have the ability to place a private citizen as the 5th person, so that way that they don't have necessarily a vested interest other than they're a representative from the board, and they're obviously a citizen of the county. But yes, to answer your question is yes, I would serve on that board. And Lieutenant Blydenberg served on the board in King George, and I'm in the process, or they're in the process of now of getting the paperwork completed in order for me to sit on that board. So yes, if there was a board here, I would be more than willing to serve on it.
Okay, I guess my next question is, my colleague talked about representatives from the Board of Supervisors and State Police, but my concern is, not hearing from the towers themselves.
Yes, sir.
As you put policies in place. And my rationale for really having a tow board is to ensure that their voice is heard and that we take all of those pieces into consideration, so one doesn't outweigh the other, but we have level heads and level thoughts on the people who are actually doing the job, right?
Yeah, you want fairness. Yes, sir.
So I understand what Mr. Sealer is saying about it's a way to negotiate, but I think there's yet a better way to do that. I appreciate your research, and I appreciate your comments.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your
Yes,
time.
ma'am.
First, Sergeant Lee,
information.
Madam Chairman, if I could ask a moment, since you said you are not an unreasonable person,
Uh-oh.
would you believe me if I said I wasn't going that fast?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you.
And do you like the blinking yellow arrow and stop?
Yeah, that's a better. Do you think that's a good idea? That's the stupidest idea in the world, isn't it?
Well, it depends on the intersection. I think I better go.
You said all we needed. Thank you, sir. He said it was a stupid idea.
On the letters, we've had 3 of 10 come in. They're waiting for some more.
When we receive either the rest of the responses, or if we don't have them by the time we put the agenda together for the 23rd, we figure we put it on with what we've got.
The 23rd regarding,
What the
Their
responses
comments,
were
the
from.
responses are.
Right, correct.
so we
And
can
we do
either
have
move
3
forward or
back.
let
Right.
it- Okay. So for the towers that are here, if your colleagues haven't responded to whether they would like to have a tow board or not, certainly we'd like to hear from them as soon as possible to get it on the 23rd agenda. Thank you.
All right, we're now up to agenda item 6, special exception 01215 Fox Springs Farm.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, members of the board. Your next item tonight is unfinished business, SPX 01-2015. The board held a public hearing on the special exception permit at your October 17th, 2017 meeting. After closing the public hearing, it was initially deferred to November 16th and then subsequently deferred until tonight's meeting at Ms. Long's request to allow her to do some additional research and receive additional information. We tried not to kill as many trees this time. We didn't include all the comment letters that previously had been provided to the board. You have the staff report along with the application and a couple of items that have come in since the last discussion of this item, including some economic data that was provided by the county administrator at the request of Ms. Long. And with that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Fitchum?
Well, I'm not sure if it's Mr. Fincham. I'm not sure I got the economic data. What was the economic data?
It was the sheets that were, you have a Chimera report, but that's part of the application. There were some sheets provided,
They were in the packet?
the mining tax worksheets that were in the back.
Okay.
Oh, I don't see them. Oh, yeah. It's just a worksheet that was provided. It was an email dated December 4th. It was sent by Mr. Cully to the board members that had the tax worksheets with an estimate of the revenues.
That was not the, we got an email the other day that said, at the request of Mr. Black, so I thought that was something different. I just wanted to make sure.
That's how much we had collected year-to-date on all the mines.
Yeah, but they're two different things, that's all I was trying to say.
Correct,
They're two
correct. The one in the packet was based on if they did 1 million tons with a royalty rate of 20 cents a ton and a mineral rate cap of 10 cents and the tax rate of 83 cents, and Mountain Dew was 16,600. But we don't collect anything anywhere near that for all, if you total up all the mines in the county currently.
Well, not counting Luckstone. If you count Luckstone, it's a lot more than that. Luckstone is $30-some thousand in real estate or something like that.
On the
Yeah.
mineral tax, not the
Yeah, the mineral tax is not all we get.
Oh, no, you get it from other things. It was specifically on mineral tax.
Yeah, I have some data on Luckstone and how much we got there, which is like $30,000-$40,000 a year. There was no, Mr. Fincham, the other question was, there was no commitment to move any machinery and tools into Caroline, or was there?
No, sir. And the reason was that it's an established operation in Spotsylvania County. The point of ingress and egress for the trucks is in Spotsylvania County. And I think the idea was that the application would minimize impacts within Caroline County by leaving the existing operation at its Spotsylvania location.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or-
And there was previous information provided by the applicant related to machinery and tools estimates, et cetera.
My point is really we can't, unless they volunteer that they're going to do that, we can't require them to do anything like that. I just wanted to make sure they hadn't volunteered and I missed it.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. After carefully reviewing the staff report on this application and considering the comments made at the public hearing by neighboring property owners, the recommendation of the Planning Commission is to deny the permit. And the potential benefits and detriments to the county and the public from this request, I believe the application should be denied. I therefore move to deny special exception 01-2015.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Yeah,
Yes,
I-
ma'am, I do.
yes, I do as well.
Start down there.
I just wanted to, first of all, I want to thank everyone who has reached out to me, left messages, and contacted me over the last several months. I know this is a very passionate debate, discussion in the 17 corridor. First of all, when I look at something, I think I look at it pretty thoroughly, and we've had this in our hands for months. Read the Planning Commission reports on what they saw and what they decided. First of all, this isn't, to the folks, this isn't about someone being a good person or a bad person. I'm not making a decision based on if someone's a good person or a bad person. That can't go into my decision. I'm looking at it from a couple things, but the big thing that I had asked for, and Mr. Cully will probably tell you, what I asked for the other day, what did we get total from the tax revenue from the amount of mines we have in Caroline as of now? And the response was $7,000. I see in a Tremura report that we're going to get roughly $700,000 over 25 years. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you, I just don't believe that report. I mean, that comes up to be $28,000 a year in tax revenue. And I just simply don't believe it. I've also heard, and I read in the newspaper, this has nothing to do with our Walmart. I mean, Walmart's on our side of the county, and this has nothing to do with my decision going in, and losing Walmart has nothing to do with making a decision on the mine. And for me, I guess the biggest thing, there's a couple things. I got some pictures here, some aerials that were taken recently in the fall. And along that 17 corridor in Spotsylvania, there are some deep pits on what I believe is currently being mined in that property. It just doesn't look good. And then finally, in the 2015 election in that district, in the Port Royal district, the biggest issue was mining, whether you're for mining or against mining. And it came down, and Ms. Long won that election. And she was against mining in that corridor. And I think that was, to me, on my own personal belief, that said a lot. So that is why I'm going to vote yes to deny. Thank you.
I think this is a decision that I think we've made the motion to deny, but I'm concerned because how much money they generate for the county should not be the major factor as to whether we approve, disapprove. As the landowner or the operators of the business, they should have a right to operate a business as long as they're within the legal limits of the law. I've heard nothing here said that they're operating illegal or have done anything illegal other than trying to make an honest living. They have to mine where the sand is. I'm not going to fly over and take aerial shots, and most of the people in the county aren't going to do either. They've demonstrated the ability to put together a solid reclamation program, and I believe they would do so. I disagree with the motion, and I'm going to vote that I disapprove of the motion. But I think we ought to do some soul searching at times, and I think this may be one of those that I don't agree with the motion whatsoever. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Am I last? Okay, for discussion? All right. I just wanted to say, and I've had a little bit of experience with the Folkses and their original permit, and I think the people that are against it, Dr. Muir, I think that's you in the background, said that I had stated before the value of the land is what's on it and not what's in it. And I still hold to that belief. But we are treading on property rights issues. If Mr. Folks was took a shovel and dug up as much of his property as he wanted, there would be nothing the county could say about it. Because it's basically his property, it's his right to do that. So for me to say he can't do that and restore the property to what it was originally just doesn't make sense. I voted against Mr. Folks the first time, and I voted against probably every mining operation that wanted to do it as a mining operation. But when people have said, this is my property, I would like to use my property for such and such a purpose, and then I will restore my property to the way it was, that's the American way. Am I supposed to infringe upon your rights as long as your rights don't infringe upon me? It's, to me, your right to do it If I wanted to vote against it and tried to find a reason to vote against it, I'm having a hard time because the traffic's going to be the same going in and out of Spotsylvania, so there's not that much traffic. There may be some minor, because of course we're going to change the value of your land, there's going to be some minor real estate gains for the county. But in 20 years, it's going to look like what it looks like now, supposedly. So I can't really say I, as the county government, should infringe upon his rights to do something. So having said that, I'm going to be forced to vote against the motion, but I can count.
As the representative for the Port Royal District, I will say that I stand behind the comprehensive plan, that this is agricultural property, it is an agricultural preservation area, and that Caroline County is not the only county that has sand and gravel. Spotsylvania has plenty of it, and there are plenty of other counties that have sand and gravel. And as comes to no surprise to anyone, I am not going to be in support of this special exception, and I am going to call now for a vote. All in favor of Mr. Seeley's motion to deny this special exception, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, Mr. Thomas.
Nay.
Mr. Black.
Aye.
Mr. Seeley.
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Nay.
Mr. Forehand.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. That brings us to our informational calendar items, number 7.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, get my computer to work, or I'll have to pack it out. I've already brought it, but officers are closed on the 12th for Lee Jackson State holiday, and then again on Monday for the Martin Luther King State holiday, federal holiday. Friday and Monday of this Friday, the offices, the county offices are closed. It's a state holiday, all the state, and Monday's a federal holiday. Just for informational purposes, the school board is their budget public hearing on the 22nd, and then we have a joint meeting with them at 4:30 here in the EOC on the 23rd prior to our 6 p.m. regular board meeting, and we do need to adjourn to that 4:30.
My other question is, how many board members are going to attend next Tuesday morning's meeting with VDOT? Because if there's more than 3 of us, can 3 of us attend without a continuation?
What meeting? What meeting we're talking about?
The VDOT meeting that Mr.
Corridor study?
Yeah, corridor study.
Mr. Fitchum has a plan.
Mr. Seeley, I was going to discuss with Mr. Nelson specific times to look at different sections of the corridor,
With different
so that
numbers.
we perhaps didn't have all 3 board members or in attendance at the same time, if that would work.
I'm good with that. I just know that I need to come look, and I'm probably going to go over to the Bowling Green meeting also.
Understood. That's one of the things I wanted to catch you.
But we still need to continue this meeting to 4 o'clock. Or are we going to advertise this meeting, or do we need to continue this meeting to 4 o'clock?
4:30. But back to the VDOT meeting, you want to just
You can continue this meeting to then, and, I mean, everybody doesn't have to show up, just like, always come to these meetings.
I think we should continue it personally, because I think trying to segment the meeting into pieces, yes, I am.
You're going to have
Yeah,
4, because
yeah.
I'm going to need 4 to continue to the school board meeting at 4:30 from the next meeting.
We won't have 4, we'll have 3. Is that not
Yeah, but if we continue this meeting tonight to a VDOT meeting
you're gonna
next week, I
continue the
still got to
VDOT
have that 4, because then I need a real meeting to continue to the,
Yeah.
I think that's the best.
Probably better.
We'll just do the VDOT meeting
Two at a time, correct.
We'll have Nancy and Jeff for a while, then me and Nancy for a while, and then me and Jeff for a while.
We could actually work that out then.
Right. I think that's
Okay, so we'll just
safer.
continue this
Continue
meeting
to the 23rd.
to the 23rd at 4:30.
4:30 in the EOC before our
EOC.
regular meeting.
And Mr. Fincham, could you make sure that someone in the town council is invited?
Yes, Mr. Nelson did respond to my request and advised that VDOT's having a separate meeting with the town of Port Royal on Wednesday, just like they're having a separate meeting with the town of Bowling Green after our meeting.
Don't forget, the Saturday night, the 27th, is the Fire and Rescue Awards Banquet at Bowling Green Town Hall. You would need to RSVP your meal choice back to the fire department for that. APLs is
22nd.
26.
6th,
26. Oh, it's the
26th.
Friday night prior. That's correct. We need to get that on the calendar. AP Hills, I was thinking it was Saturday night. No, just a local government reception. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you tonight or tomorrow. They've sent it out directly. In February, come on, computer. We have the VACO County Government Day at the Omni in Richmond is February 8th. That also happens to be a board packet day, so I don't know what senior staff will be going. I may, if one of you wants to go, might get Mr. Wilson to run up if his schedule allows. We can do that. Yeah.
That may not help, is that what you're saying?
We can't, we managed the last time. That's up to Mr. Parton if what he thinks about that as well. But anyway, we'll work.
Because if it's a day late, it's a day late.
That's for the February, so we still have time to the 23rd to ask for that extension. The board meeting is on the 13th of February, and then, of course, we have the President's Day holiday on the 19th of February. So that's pretty much what we have informational-wise.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question? That's why I asked her, not you. We got Caitlin Carter got a letter from Mr. Black and Mr. Forehand for the Little League and their grant. And Mr. Black told me he just did it a couple of days ago. I know they're great people, but wouldn't it be a little more impactful if we got a letter from the entire board that said the entire board was behind it to help them? And if that's okay with the chairperson, I would hope that the chair would get together with staff and put together a letter the whole board is in support of it.
We've already approved funds for them, so I would assume we would approve
That's for
the
their
grant.
grant.
I would
This is for
assume
their
we would
grant.
approve the
Exactly,
grant.
give a letter for the full board. as
Give them a
support.
letter from the full board.
I'll make a motion that we support the full grant application with a Board of Supervisors letter.
Second.
Hey, can I get
Aye.
Can I get under my own idea?
Thanks for the motion, Mr. Thomas.
Anything I can do to help? All right.
Make a motion to adjourn, Reggie, make it. Oh, we can't adjourn, we've got to.
Do we have topics, for the, Mr. Kelly, do we have topics to address with the school board on the 23rd?
Budget. I'm sure they'll be, giving you their budget request number and the reasoning behind that.
That'll take 2 hours.
We need to, to recess, most recess.
No board comment?
No
Closing
comments.
board comments, Madam Chairman?
Yeah, sorry.
Again, closing board comments. Mr. Thomas.
I thought Fred was supposed to be here today.
23rd.
Oh, the 23rd, okay. And Mr. Wilson, well, I asked Mr. Cully, I'm sure Mr. Wilson has an advertising plan to help with Fred like we talked about when they first came.
I guess if we can decide what the routes are they wanted. They've got the study they've done about routes.
No, we talked about publicity.
But they were supposed to do it.
Yeah.
All right, because they're, well, make sure they know they were supposed to talk about publicity. All right, that's it, thank you.
Mr. Black, do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Seeley?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Underwood?
No, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Forehand?
We are trying to pull together, the proposed development over in Ladysmith regarding the industrial complex is attempting to pull together an information meeting and before our next board meeting. The tentative date will be the 18th of January. Again, this is all tentative. Yes. Okay. Didn't realize that, but okay. But they're trying to have a meeting, just get information out there so that everyone has an opportunity to hear it firsthand. More will come out on that, and that'll be formalized in the coming days.
Thank you all for putting up with me as I try to get used to the stupid microphone. And I appreciate your help throughout the year, and we will move forward to an active year. Now, do I have a motion to recess?
I'll make a motion that we recess to 4:30 on January 23rd with a joint meeting with the school board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?